So I'm here to speak to you about finding your voice and building your authority. So all of you are successful. You're here, you're investing in yourself. You have done so much, Some people say we are high achievers. I don't know, sometimes people think that's a bad word, overachieving. But we're winners. We've done a lot. We've done more. When we were students in school, perhaps, were taking easy courses, we were taking the hard courses. We were taking the AP. Then we were building our practices or building our businesses. We were always doing more. And we have reached a level of success. And we are grateful for our blessings. But even with that, at times we might ask ourselves, is there something more I'm meant to do? Has there ever been a time that you asked yourself that question? But why? I'm having the best life right now. I'm doing everything. But in your gut, with all the blessings, you still feel like there might be something more I'm meant to do. Well, I asked that question, but it wasn't then. This was, if you would take a little journey with me, back to 2013. And I was celebrating my 40th birthday. And if any of you guys know me, we don't just have little parties. We go all out. We have like an extravaganza. So yes, we had belly dancers. It was a big Persian party with Persian yummy food and delicious food there. At the time, my kids, my oldest Michaela was 6, and she's now a senior. And my twins, Nicholas and Hayden, were 3. And we had a DJ dancing the night away with my husband, Alex. Just remember getting out there, Justin Timberlake, and Rock Your Body. I mean, we were having a good time, right? So here we are, my 40th birthday. Everything's great. I am a practice owner of 3 practices. I was fully staffed at the time. Things were going great. And I was like, just being responsible, turned 40. Perhaps it's time that maybe I should, get my checkup. So I go to see my friend who happens to be my gynecologist, and she's like, well, it's time for you, Laila, to go ahead and get your mammogram. Like, I have no family history. I really don't need to go get a mammogram. And she said, yeah, you do. So you know how we are. We're really all so busy. We have so many responsibilities, especially working mothers, where we're trying to balance the office and taking care of the kids and who's going to pick them up and who's going to buy the present for the birthday party that they have to do, and also call the service guy for the car. It's just so many things that we're trying to do. Who has time to go get a mammogram when surely you don't really need it? But I did. With her persistence, I went ahead and got my mammogram. And I remember vividly how annoyed I was that I had to go and do this, and sitting there waiting for them to take the scan and looking to the side. There was this poster, those feel-good posters, and there's about with a tree, picture of a tree, and wisdom from a tree. Don't forget your roots. Go out on a limb. Don't forget to drink your water. Stay hydrated. I was like, okay, so go through it, get my mammo, get back to work, and never thought anything else about it. Until the next day, I got a call from the office. They said, oh, we're going to need you to come back. We need to repeat your scan. I was like, oh my gosh. I really don't have time for this. Never, but in the busyness, never really thinking that anything could be wrong. It was more of an inconvenience of time because we're so busy doing all the things so that we can give a life for our children and be successful. So I go, and then after I was done, I was expecting to leave just like I did last time. But this time they asked me to just have a seat till the doctor can have a word with you. And then it hit me. And then when I went into the office and sat there, she pulled up the two monitors. I had the images there. And then my stomach just kind of dropped at that moment. And just like for the dentist here, when we're showing our x-rays to our patients and we're trying to show them where a cavity is, right? And you're like, see that dark spot? And they're just kind of like nodding, but they don't really see what you're seeing or explaining to them. She was explaining to me these clusters, these little micro clusters, hypercalcifications, and then it just kind of all went blurry. These cells can be cancerous at times, so something we're going to have to look into, Laila. And so with that, it was so much happening, a lot of tests. And just to move the story forward, we found out, of course, that I was diagnosed with, luckily, the earliest stage of cancer that I was able to treat. But while I was, after the surgery, I diagnosed in May, but actually didn't schedule my surgery until later in August because I had to serve my patients, right? The summer is the busiest time in pediatric dentistry. I couldn't take time off to have my surgery and have to worry about rescheduling all these patients. So I put the patients and my staff before my self-care. And I remember going back to work, and I put this picture up to show that I returned 25 days after a double mastectomy. Why? Again, because I didn't want to inconvenience the team, my families, because of what I had to go through. I remember even at home when I was recovering, and I was so grateful for all the gifts and the food and people coming, and I remember trying to get myself together, even though I still had drains coming, from my armpits and hiding the bulbs in my robe, and so I could greet someone who was coming to visit. And my husband's like, "Well, why are you getting up?" I said, "Well, I don't want them to feel bad that I didn't come and say thank you." Again, I was just thinking about others instead of putting myself first to heal. And when I had to get back to work, I went too soon because I didn't honor what I needed to do for myself. That led to the burnout, and that led to resentment. The staff and the team could tell that I wasn't my bubbly self that I used to be. And I remember my partner at the time came and spoke, and an intervention of sorts, and it's like, "Laila, you're going to have to do something because right now it's like you don't want to be here." And I didn't. I had caught my rock bottom was when I was looking forward to my follow-up surgery and my reconstruction so that I could have some time off from work. I looked forward to having to stay in the hospital and just rest, and that was so unhealthy. And then also, when I was there, I was just questioning myself is this what I'm meant to do, or is there something more? Well, that's what I want to tell you. I am on the other side because I did search for that answer, and I'm happy to say that I'm still at work and I'm doing something more, and I'm doing something that brings me joy and just rewards me with so much happiness. So today we will talk about why you should seek your voice, because what was happening, I was not listening to myself. I was worried about what others were thinking and how they were feeling and how they would experience their life. I will talk to you about what is silencing your voice, right? And how is it that we can rediscover our voice so that we could find ways to amplify it and show your authority. So as a lot of business owners here and dentists who are practicing, and even if you're in the practice and you're leading as an associate, you can be an authority in any area that you choose. All right, so why should you seek your voice? Well, truly, it's to find that courage to live authentically. I just wasn't. At the time, there was just so much going on and the burnout that I just wasn't living the life that was bringing me joy. When you're listening to your voice, you can really seek that inner wisdom. You can discern certain decisions that you need to make on what your next step or your next move should be in life. And you can position yourself as this authority. One thing I'll tell you, when you are living by the narrative of someone else's life or direction for your life, then that's when you kind of live away or move away from your own values and your own goals. And then if you are listening to your inner voice, and no one can disprove your own story because there's only you, and you're the only one who knows your story best. So that is what's going to put your confidence up and your courage up to be an authority in whichever field you lead. And you'll find joy and success. There's nothing more liberating than knowing that you are living your authentic life. So with my voice, what I wanted to do, I wanted to make a greater impact. We were discussing earlier about our values and what our core beliefs are. And living a purposeful, driven life is something that is very important to me. And I know for all of us who are in healthcare, that is for you too. And when you are using your God-given gifts, you are going to make a difference in someone's life. And for me, it's always to try to impart that in someone to believe in themselves. So, when did you lose your voice? Can you think of anything in childhood that perhaps maybe smothered or dampened your voice? I know a lot of us at times can reflect on how we were told to be quiet, to be respectful, and not to use our voice. So maybe it started in your childhood. Perhaps it could have been a past relationship where there was some control in the relationship and you weren't given the opportunity to share your true beliefs or your true what your actions were shaped by someone in that relationship. And that may have been a point that you lost your voice. What about when you took on a new identity, when you became a parent, when you became a dentist, when you became a healthcare worker? Have you wrapped yourself in that identity that you've kind of forgotten who your soul is, who your spirit is? This, of course, is going to take some time where you have to have time to really self-reflect and think about these things. I shared with you my life-changing crises, but I will tell you this. Cancer did not cause my burnout. Cancer just revealed that I had boundary issues. And boundaries is a main thing that will also take you away from listening to what your inner voice is saying and doing. So it just it revealed that to me. So let's talk about boundaries and boundaries violations. Boundaries, I think that there's so many different definitions about boundaries, but I think we all know what it is. One of my favorite ones comes from Brene Brown, where she says, boundaries is simply what is okay and what is not okay. Is it okay to speak to me this way, or is it not okay to speak to me this way? And being able to vocalize that and identifying and setting what your boundaries are and maintaining them. Perfectionism, I'll speak from the dental perspective that we are working in spaces that perfectionism to make a restoration last is very important, right? So we're used to having to work in millimeters, we should say. But what can be so harmful is when we're setting these unrealistic expectations and goals for ourselves, that the perfection of us may be keeping us from pursuing our next step or pursuing something that we want or to talk about or share. Then a lot of times perfectionism is that we are just fearful. We're fearful of judgment, what people will think. Is this why I have hesitated to do certain things in my life? Is because I'm not going to put it out in the world until it's perfect. So I would like for you guys to think about there's something you really wanted to do and what is keeping you from doing it, and just see if it's perfectionism. Imposter phenomenon. We will struggle with imposter phenomenon regardless of all the track record of our success, of all the accomplishments we have made in our fields, our professional fields, but yet still question ourselves to be worthy of doing something or to take on that task. Imposter phenomenon is something that will keep you from really speaking your true voice and finding your spirit and what you are meant to do with your life. I'm going to talk a little bit about microaggressions because microaggressions is a form of boundary violations. Microaggressions can come in the form as a biased or unbiased insult, but it's just commonly done to a point where subtle kind of slice of comments that hurt over time. Someone has described it as like small little slits at the one, it doesn't hurt, but after plenty more on top, it turns into a wound. And when we're getting these microaggressions that are usually targeted to marginalized communities, persons of color, women, and also LGBTQ communities, we hear that. As a woman, and I'm being introduced with a friend of mine, actually, she was introduced with her husband, who's not a doctor, and she's a doctor, and just the assumption that he's the doctor. Or a friend has shared a story that coming out of the dental practice, there's covered parking for the doctors. And someone came to her and was like, you're parking in the doctor's parking space. She's like, well, I am the doctor. What about when I am speaking, or another, perhaps a Black doctor has given a speech and you come off, it's like, wow, you're so articulate. That's a microaggression. What about for a gay dentist or associate, and someone's like, oh, I didn't know you were gay. You don't act gay. These are examples of microaggressions. And so when you're being hurt with this over and over again, that can just smother your voice. I want to share a story about my book. So after I went through this whole realization that I needed to do something because I was burned out, I really thought about what was in my heart. And I was like, I really want to write my story. I really want to help someone who is going through what I have been going through and help them to see that they will come out from it stronger and more confident and better and all that good stuff, right? So I was going to write a book about my story. And I had no idea how to write a book. So I did what I recommend everyone to do, just like in business, to get a coach. You might have a life coach, might have a business coach. I wanted a writing coach. So my writing coach said, writing your story is going to be really hard for you. You should write about what you know. You're a dentist, just write about being a dentist. And because I had lost my voice and because I was having a little bit of that imposter syndrome that I was struggling with, and I wanted it to be perfect, I mean, I'm checking off all those boxes, right? I listened to him. So I wrote an entire book that is available for sale in the back on how to care for your kids' teeth. Yes, I will take that back. I didn't enjoy writing the book. It was easy for me to write the book. But sometimes taking the easy way is not the right thing. It's not the most impactful and meaningful thing for you to do. But what's so sad is that I spent a couple years, because I didn't want to do it, of my life working on that. On the left was my book, mind map. I had that all written out, how I was going to talk about being a dentist and how that all spanned from where I started as a child and took me there and the cancer. I mean, I just had it all planned out, but I just threw it away. In fact, it was nice to kind of search for it to see that I still had it to share it with you in this presentation. But here I am with my smile, smile behind the hurt. And yes, I did everything I could do to make it successful and get it hit on the number one release in my categories. But that was one small microaggression that he probably never would have realized that would have made such a huge impact in the decision I made. But we always learn from it, right? So what silences your voice in healthcare? I want to talk a little bit about boundary violations. Would anyone agree here that we all have a problem with boundaries around our time? Do we feel like we're being pulled in so many directions? And I say healthcare, of course, this goes to in business as well, where you're feeling that when you're having such a struggle with time is because you're feeling like you have to be everything to everybody. For me, growing up, I was the oldest sister. I was older by 9 and 10 years. My mother, we grew up in a single-parent home, and my mom worked a couple jobs. So it was my job to get my sisters to school and pick them up and take them to dance and come home and kind of help. So I was doing everything. So that is why I overextend myself to this day. So I always say that, as the saying goes, we often teach what we need to learn most. So I figure if I keep teaching on it, maybe I'll work on that. So time, how is time seen as a boundary in healthcare? Could it be that when you are asking for some time off, having your office manager to block out some time, but they start putting stuff in, and so then that anytime you do that, then that's taking you away from doing something that you really wanted to do? Is it insane to say that you want to block out time just to create? You have to hold those boundaries. Emotionally, this is when you make a statement, and then sometimes the response is given as a guilt, so that you feel like you shouldn't have that boundary. And an example could be when you're in the office and you're recommending a treatment plan, and this kind of emotional and intellectual kind of go hand in hand here. And I will be faced, because when I speak of my patients, I really have two patients in pediatric dentistry. I have the parent and I have the patient. And there are times when parents are like, well, no, they just disagree with your treatment plan and kind of dictate how they think it should be done. And so that's challenging your intellectual boundary. Instead of setting them firm and staying with it, the minute you do that, you always kind of go down the wrong rabbit hole instead of standing firm on what your recommendation is. Emotional also can be coming home after a hard day and trying to speak about what happened in the practice or how a patient spoke to you, and then your partner or spouse, or maybe you're sharing this with a girlfriend, will say, oh, but let me tell you, at least you have that patient, my implant failed, and kind of dismissing what you're going through and what you just shared. And so then that can cause you to lose that voice because your boundary continues to be violated. And then physical, this can be just as simple as your space. Maybe you're not a hugger. What if your patient is coming and hugs you every time and you don't want it? What are you going to come back and say? It's like, I'm not much of a hugger. And at least now we can kind of say it's COVID, right? But physical boundaries is just respecting that space. And it had to be okay and comfortable to set that with others. And the sexual, if you're working in a work environment, it doesn't have to be overt, but, there's those jokes that you find are inappropriate. And things are said, and you have to find your voice to speak up and say, I'm not okay with that, or please stop. And no means no. So how to say no? Because I think saying no is the hardest thing, at least for me. Anybody in here have a hard time saying no? Okay, yeah, exactly, right? So I wanted to give you some tips. Kids like me, you don't say no. Oh, but I kept saying no on Wednesday. No. Oh. Oh my God, that's so true. Get it done. It's a fetal thing. Hey, get this done. Yes. No, it's true. I love it. That is so true. But let's say, can you serve on my board? You don't have another extra moment in your mind in your day to serve on a board. It's like, just pause. Sometimes we're saying yes to things because we don't want to hurt their feelings, or you feel like you owe them, or perhaps they have set it up where it seems like they've guilt-tripped you into it to say no. So just say no. But then also just remind yourself, if they do come back, it's like, well, I would do this for you. Would they? Have you turned it to them and asked them that? So they have to respect that. So say no, of course, but you can say, I cannot donate to your charity right now, but how can I help by sharing your message and amplifying on my platform? Or perhaps I can give you the name of another organization that can help support you. Say you need to check your calendar first. Every time I don't look at my calendar, I am double booking myself, and then you're violating your time boundary again. Just look at the calendar, and it just gives you a little space where you'll even if it comes on an email or a text, that you have time to kind of bounce it back to them, right? And so you don't have to answer right away. Just remember, you don't have to answer right away. I love my email bounce backs. I stopped doing them for a while, and I'm going to go back to doing them again. Because, and this happens too, if you're in a plan and you've set something in motion where you have a big goal, but you find yourself distracting yourself doing mundane things like checking emails over and over again because you don't want to miss it, or you just don't want to attack what your goal is that day. Having an email bounce back lets the other person, the sender know that you have received it, and you'll get back to them. And then you can time block when you're going to respond to emails. And this just goes into a little bit more productivity. In an organization where you have kind of a management team, you can ask, this part I love, is what can you deprioritize? So let's say the manager has already put you, or we could put in a dental scenario where you're the lead dentist, and they've asked you to put together the call schedule for the assistants. But then they've also asked you to go ahead and can you write up the new systems on how we're going to handle our emergency protocol? Instead, you could say, well, right now I'm working on the call schedule. What would you like, and something else, let's say, and caring for patients. What would you like me to deprioritize so that I can address that task for you next? So instead of, and a lot of times with leaders in business, when we're disseminating information, we're just trying to get it off our plate. So you're sending out all these emails and all that. You may not realize that things are piling up on your coworker. So when you come back with this, then it puts it back on them. And then use humor. Like, can you help me move? I'm like, no, I just can't do it. Will you do a run with me? I was like, I don't run. Just making it funny and just like, so they get the point that you're just kindly saying no. And no is a complete sentence. You don't even have to have an explanation. Just remember, no. So learn to say no to the people and projects that don't align with your goals. Because if you don't, then again, your life is going to spin out of control and you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to have that time to really think about what it is that you want to do. So when we set boundaries, the possibilities are boundless. So I want to share with you how I rediscovered my voice. And I'm not sharing all the things that I've accomplished to be boastful, but just to let you know, to paint a clear picture. I was rock bottom 3 years ago. I wanted my husband to try to find another profession, not another profession, but another position. He's an academic physician, and somewhere else so that I would have an excuse to have to leave my practice that I built from scratch and built it to 3 practices across Tucson, couple associates, partners, and a thriving practice. I was ready just to walk away from it. So I realized I had to do something different. And so I came across this book, The Miracle Morning. Anyone have read The Miracle Morning before? Isn't it great? Yeah. And The Lifesavers was my lifesaver. It really helped me to get quiet and to really listen to what am I going to do next. So just to go through, the S is for silence. To really have time for prayer, for self-meditation, reflection, and doing all these things to do in the morning so you can start the day off right. When you start the day off right, you have a great day, you have a great week, you can move on, and it just builds up upon one another. Affirmations, and I'll share a few affirmations with you as well, but affirmations really helps you vocalize what your goals are, what you see for yourself. When and also I'll share too that I met with a life coach. She's like, well, what do you want to do next? And I said, I really still want to practice. I'm not ready to walk away, but I just need to get my spark back. I said, I would love to share my story. I didn't get to write my story, so let me share my story. She said, okay, so you want to be a speaker? I said, yeah. So my affirmation was I was going to see myself speaking to an audience. And so I would say that you are confident, I'll show you my affirmations in the next slide, but I'm a confident, sought-after speaker. So I continue to say those daily. The visualization, I had a vision board on my phone and a picture of what I saw for myself. Exercise for the E, I would just do some yoga. Sometimes I did a little calisthenics in the morning, really short, because I'm trying to do all this before, got to get to work at 7:30 in the morning. But exercising was a great way to get my energy going and start the habit of what's going to follow throughout the day. If I exercise, then I always eat better. If I don't exercise, all hell breaks loose, right? And reading, having some books on self-development books and some just casual reading that I would have just a stack on there, and whatever I felt like reading that day, I would just pull it. And would always help. And at the last S is for scribing, like journaling. And it's great to have journals, sometimes even just to see what are the things that are continuing to reoccur in your life. And then that can help you address what it is that is you're not taken care of. So, or it can help you see how far you've come. So journaling helps you get everything out of your head and onto paper, and it really just kind of helps to give you some direction on what to do next. And one thing I'll hear, so here's this is actually my table, my quiet corner. So I have some devotionals, my journal, Boss Women Pray is a great book, and my Bible. And also I read on the One Thing book by Gary Keller and Papazan. They have the 66-day challenge. So whenever you're trying to start a new habit, it takes about 66 times before you've really nailed that as a habit, made a recurring habit. So I had to do that for my meditation. And still to this day, sometimes there's days that I forget, but I do know that I've built that habit to try to make sure that it's part of my routine. So just to share a few affirmations, you can take some that might work for you. Does anyone else do affirmations? Yeah. You know what else I've learned? Listen to a lot of podcasts too. But really hearing yourself say them out loud. Then it makes a connection in your brain. It's just a difference than when you're reading it to yourself and you hear it. So I've recorded my affirmations and I'll play them on the way to work sometimes. But, I talked about things that I want to see myself achieve for the day. I today is going to be a great day. The parents are going to accept my treatment plan and know that it's my best interest is for their children. I would have my morning routine is bringing me closer to God so I can hear his voice in my spirit. I know today is going to go smoothly. I'll work less, but bring in the same income, doing things that bring me joy and give me more time to do my advocacy work. I have to say those things because if I don't, I tend to forget, and then we get into that same rut of recycling the same things that are not doing us any good, but causing harm in our life. So yeah, you don't have to have this many. Sometimes I'll just continue to add to them. So it's great when you record it, you just play it. So it takes about a couple minutes. But yes, I'm happy to see that these affirmations I started 3 years ago, and to just be here present with you is just very humbling. On my vision board, I took a picture. I just took this off the internet. I have it on my phone. I even had things, visions for my family, visions for my practice, and I just kind of scroll through it. You got to be careful though, because you don't want to check your emails first thing in the morning. So if you think you have a tendency to do that, then just make your own vision board, like old school cut and paste magazines. But yes. That's a vision board. So I talked a little bit to you about my life coach. And when I met the life coach, again, this was right after all this stuff that was going on and the intervention of sorts. And I was like, a life coach? I never even heard of a life coach. But my same doctor who actually diagnosed, or she got me to get my mammogram, I was at her office, and she was having some wine and cheese thing, and she has the latest laser that takes care of all the stuff in the women's private parts kind of thing. And so we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden she throws up a whole screen of, I don't want to make it uncomfortable for everyone, but women's private parts, let's just say that. And in my discomfort and embarrassment, I kind of connected to the women sitting next to me, and we were just kind of laughing like, I can't believe we're looking at this right now. Just like kind of as dentists, we put up gross teeth and we don't think anything of it, where other people are like, oh my God, why are they showing me this? But once I kind of talked to her, I found out she was a life coach. I was like, oh, I think I'm going to need your services. And she was great. And she has this acronym that I use, and I always ask her for permission to share it with you. But she said, so Laila, what's next? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to leave my practice. I shouldn't be a dentist. I'm suck at everything. I was just at the lowest. She said, no. N, what's not working for you right now? Well, I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed as all get out. I can't handle all my responsibilities. My staff doesn't like me. My parents are ruining my life. It's driving me crazy. Okay, E, what do you expect to happen if you don't change? Well, I'm probably going to have a heart attack or get cancer again, or I don't know. Oh, and by the way, after the cancer thing, 3 years later, I had shingles that almost got to my eye. And then someone said, are you stressed, Laila? It's like, I guess I am. So this is why I expected. So we can't do that anymore, right? X, Laila, what would be extraordinary? Well, it'd be great if I could reduce my hours so I could do stuff I really want to do but still serve my patients. She said, okay. So T, what is timely? What can you do right now? Okay, well, I got to brainstorm and see how I would do a book, how I would speak. Exactly. So then you take the time. But the only way you're going to be able to take that time is to make the time. And that's where your morning or any time of the day, but you got to have that quiet time. You have to sit there and really try to seek and uncover your voice that's been smothered. So we talked a little bit about fear with Dr. House, but let go of fear. You just have to let go of fear. Anything new, it takes the courage. You're going to have to make that step and expect to fail sometimes, but it's always the resilience of how you come back from it, how you bounce back stronger, like all of us have done coming back from COVID. So I want to let go of fear, and I want to speak from my heart. And when I did that, things started to change. One day, I was just scrolling through Facebook in 2018. Again, this is all at the same time that I'm working with the coach. I'm doing my miracle morning stuff. So this formula works. And American Dental Association released a statistic that still 3.8% of all dentists are black, are represented by black dentists. Only 3.8% represent the total workforce. 3.8%, which is below the representation, the natural the proportion of it in our United States. I couldn't believe that. So I just went onto my Facebook personal page and I wrote the quote, it's not the quote, I just wrote this question to them. I posted as, here's the stat, whose kid can I mentor? I really felt that the only way we're going to be able to increase the diversity in dentistry is to increase the applicants coming into dentistry from students of color. And so I said, whose kid can I mentor? And from that, it grew. I got emails and private messages from parents and grandparents. My kid is interested. Do you think my niece would be a good dentist? Or what does she have to do? What are the resources out there? So this Facebook thing just grew into a community that has grown to 1,500 members now. And then people are saying, well, I believe in this too. How can I donate? What can I do? So from then it spurred onto a national nonprofit. And we are making a difference in the lives of children of color, and also our pre-dental students who are on the right path to give them a network for them to succeed. From that, I was invited to share my opinion on the American Dental Association News, on my op-ed that I wrote, Why Diversity in Dentistry Matters and How It Can Help. Now, I was faced with a little bit of hatred that came from that, but it only helped to amplify the message. From anything. You know when you're going to make big moves and put yourself out there that you're open to criticism. And it was hurtful. But the silver lining around it all is that so many people came to rally around me, to support me and uplift me. So discovering the message in your heart is love. When you're speaking from your heart, it always has to come from a place of love. So my L is listen to your still, small voice and live out loud. To live boldly, you got to be quiet. You got to listen to that still voice because you have all the answers within you. You want to own the power of your story. When that writing coach told me I couldn't write about my own story, how is he going to disprove my own story? Stand in the power of your story and don't let anyone else redirect you. V, vulnerability is your strength. Vulnerability is not a weakness. When you are vulnerable, you are connecting with others, and that is what's going to make the biggest difference. And E, execute your next step, right? What is timely? What can you do right now, today, at the end of the session? Just write down something that you're going to do to make it happen. But just always speak from a place of love, and you will always succeed. So ways to amplify your voice, to build your authority. What are you going to build next? Do you want to be a speaker, an author, founder, influencer, or advocate? And you can do all this stuff within your business. I'm not saying you need to leave your business, your practice, or whatever you're doing, but I want you to be the authority. But when you're speaking from your voice, that is going to position yourself as the authority, and that's going to make people want to come listen to you. What does she have to say? What are her stories are going to help impact me? What are you going to do to make a difference in someone's life? So, starting today, find a mentor or a sponsor. That's what I did. And that's really helped me not only in my practice, but also in the nonprofit. Find an accountability partner. We know that the research shows you will be much more successful when you have an accountability partner. Tell people if you want to speak, you're available to speak. If you're going to write, tell people you are going to write so that they're holding you accountable as well. But also that they know that, hey, this is what she's doing. And you maybe get invited. And invest in yourself with coaching and courses. Trust yourself to take that leap. Know that failure is an option, as we heard, but that you will always can learn how to fail forward. And show up and be heard. When you are witnessing microaggressions or racist remarks, be an upstander. Speak up. It needs everyone to do it. And if you're a victim of it or on the other side of it, speak up. So what you seek is seeking you. I love this quote by Rumi. So there's something in your belly. It's there for a reason. And you just have to put it out there that you're ready and it's coming for you. It's already looking for you. We're just waiting. And then just quickly, just to end up, I just wanted to show all the things that have happened. After the murder of George Floyd, I just wrote an article. It was published in Thrive Global, Speaking from the Heart Against Racism. I'm at the ADA Institute for Diversity and Leadership, the book, the nonprofit, all of this, but I had to show up. I had to show up so now people could invite me to be on webinars and be speaking in front of my academy and be in the presence of the stage of the greats like Dr. Jane Singford and be in class as a world-class speaker. It starts somewhere, and it starts with the first step. So what will you build with your voice? I'm here. If you ever have any questions, I would love to connect with you. I know whatever you have planned is going to be great, and the world is going to be better for it. Thank you so much.